Hello and welcome to this new Kerbal Space Program Reborn episode. And this is the 20th episode, and today we have exciting stuff happening today, including our Moonlight relaunch, an interesting Corp 4 launch, as well as us finally flying by Venus with our Venus 1 mission. But first, to start things off, I accepted some contracts to start the episode. Along with that, I instantly did them as well with a Prometheus 2 rocket. But I actually collected some surface samples that I have collected and noticed I could collect, as well as post-launch at Splashdown, where we could also gain some surface samples from the water. After we did all our experiments, we were now ready to launch a Moonlight 3 mission, with everything going successful from top to bottom. And this was very crucial, as it really shows how reliable this rocket had gotten. No matter how much we change the payload, it'll always be launchable. And yeah, I did make some payload changes because it being an old design that I didn't like anymore. So I changed it, which didn't cost too much. It even costed less, to be honest, because we were removing parts and therefore having us less weight. But nonetheless, the rocket is really gotten reliable. Not only the Moonlight 3 rocket, but also our Carb rocket, which we will also be launching later in this episode. This mission was set to go into a polar orbit of the moon, and it's a communication satellite that'll be used for future moon landings or just communication purposes between Earth and moon. I had decoupled our fuel stage in order for our satellite to now be fully functional, with our solar panels facing the sun and rotatable as well. So this is fully operational now, and we were ready for the next launch. Thus being the Corp 4 rocket, and we're so close to reaching extractable solar panels, which is a huge step for our space career. But before we can unlock them, we are launching our Corp 4 satellite here. But the interesting part of this launch being that it's not only one satellite, as you can see. I'm actually doing not two either. I'm doing 3 whole satellites on one launch. And this was done to test the capabilities of the Corp 4 rocket and explore how the future development may be that we can launch multiple satellites at once. So we're crossing our fingers for this launch, because we really hope that the multiple satellite decoupling would work, since it's a multi-process that you have to go through. So the launch itself went absolutely flawless, and now onto our satellite decoupling. We had 3 whole satellites on board and we needed to get rid of them now. The first one went absolutely flawlessly, as you can see right here. But the second one did have a little bit of a struggle, but after a few seconds it had gotten out of its strangle, and then therefore the last one came off perfectly as well. So, with all those satellites deployed, we were now ready to do our deorbit burn for our engine here, in order to, again here, save space junk. And once we have done that, we can see all 3 satellites in their glory and in their designated orbit. And they are now fully operational as individual satellites. So I was originally going to check up on our Venus 1 mission, and I skipped time a bit until before the end of 1951, on Christmas actually, and went ahead to go to Carbonautica to see how they're celebrating Christmas on the space station, as well as just check up on them basically, to make sure that nothing has gone wrong or something that I need to be alert of. But luckily there was nothing of that. I activated the lights since it seemed a bit dark there, especially in the night, but I also started researching for data that we can use for science. So then it was finally time for our flyby encounter with Venus, with our Venus 1 mission. And after staggering 162 days in space, it had finally achieved its destination, Venus. We've collected as much data as we could in space high over Venus, as well as space not high over Venus, but also in the atmosphere of Venus. Since if you remember, we're actually touching the atmosphere with this in the slightest bit, but we're still touching it, which you'll see in just a second here. Before we actually enter the atmosphere though, and get a little taste of it, we're actually having a Venusian sunset right here. And this looks absolutely pretty, as this was the first sunset that we're witnessing, which is not on Earth nor the moon. And since this was a different planet, it had a whole different atmosphere, and this meaning that the sunset is not yellow or orange how on Earth, but it's actually blue because of how the atmosphere is. Just look at this. And that looked absolutely fabulous. So after I was done, I had collected as much data as I could again here before re-entering the atmosphere, as it was now time for touching the atmosphere. And yeah, I did not expect this to happen, because we were actually heating up and it did not seem good for me, because if we lost our fuel tank there, we would have lost this whole probe. But luckily we didn't go deep enough to actually overheat it and managed to get out of there alive, with all pods still standing. So we have collected a whole lot of data, and we have actually saw a sunrise again. And with that being done, we are done with this episode. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope I see you guys next episode. Bye bye.